Across the water, that's downtown Oakland. Look at the skyline of San Francisco. The tallest building is the Trans-American Pyramid at 61 stories, home to the Trans-American Insurance Company. The tall brown building was the building in the movie The Towering Inferno. This goes to the financial center for the western states. As you look out the windshield, that's Mount Davidson up ahead of us. You can barely see the cross over the top of the tree line up ahead. The cross on top of Mount Davidson, it's an old World War II monument. Easter sunrise services are held every year under the cross in all denominations. People just hike to the top of the hill. The Pacific Ocean's on your left, the bay on the right, and the bay up ahead. The red and white tower is where we get our radio and television signals. It's called Sutro Tower. And you see the towers out the windshield. Those would be the 911 emergency communications. So we'll circle the peaks. If you look out the windshield to the water side at 1 o'clock ahead, you can see Candlestick Park. You see the round mountain out there with the single antenna? You look left of it, you see the light standards of a Candlestick out there at 1 o'clock. Well, Candlestick, but it's a good 10 degrees warmer in the summer. Now, the eucalyptus trees you're seeing again on the right side, as I told you before, they're from Australia. There's over 600 varieties. The type of eucalyptus you see here, you'll see them all around California. Eucalyptus were brought to this area with the Australian miners that came over here in the gold rush. In the 1840s, there weren't many trees, and they needed lumber right away in those years for home building and wood burning. The eucalyptus are a fast-growing tree. They had some redwood, some black and live oak at the time, but a lot of things you see here have been planted here. Lights was also the first store in the world to ever sell a paperback. There's a garlic restaurant coming up on your left called the Stinking Rose. If you like garlic, everything on their menu, including the ice cream, has garlic in it. Now, we're driving down Columbus Avenue. The street you want to walk in North Beach would be Grant Avenue. You walk this Grant Avenue up to your right side. It gives you a better feel of the neighborhood. I'm not allowed to go up the street with the bus. You find the saloon over to your right here. Oldest saloon in our city. They pour stiff drinks, live blues all the time at the saloon. On Grant Avenue, you'll find Cafe Trieste, the best coffee house. Cafe Trieste introduced... Now this trendy restaurant on the right up here with the person getting the parking ticket here, this is Rose Pistola Mason. The Powell Mason cable car drops you 2 blocks left of here. As you cross the beach, as a kid, DiMaggio played baseball on this hardtop over to your right here at the North Beach Playground. So we're approaching Lombard Street now. Lombard, the crookedest street, that'll be a left side view at the next intersection. So You want to look up to the top of the hill to your left here at the next intersection from the cars zigzagging down. As you look up, you'll see Lombard is a real steep hill. It was designed in 1922 by the residents and the city to bring the traffic down at a safe speed. So they planted gardens right down the block. You come down 8 switchbacks on a brick street through the pretty gardens and pretty homes. There'll be a left side view, top of the hill here to your left. So you look all the way up to the top from the cars zigzagging down. Now if you had a car, you want to do a drive down Lombard Street, of course. It was designed to bring the traffic down at a safe speed, but they created a huge tourist attraction. On the weekends, you're in a traffic jam for about an hour to get over that hill. On that filling. Any room, good food, good service, and priced right. All around good experience would be the Empress of China. Now, if you're looking for the small Chinese restaurants, these next 3 streets that we cross on your left side are Chinese restaurants. Mainly Jackson Street up ahead is nothing but restaurants. I'd say these 3 streets, you got about 60 restaurants in 3 streets. Now, my favorite little restaurant I go to all the time in Chinatown for a lot of years is on the next cross street, Jackson, called Hunan Homes. So all you have to do to find a good restaurant in Chinatown is walk up and down Jackson Street. Wall-to-wall restaurants, you just browse the windows. The busier the restaurant, the better it is. Some of these restaurants are packed and some are empty. Now, Jackson Street was the Barbary Coast Trail that came down Grant to the right on Jackson. So if you went down Jackson Street to your right 2 blocks, you find the old buildings that date back to the gold rush. Jackson Street back in 1849 was a street lined with brothels, saloons, gambling parlors. Men were getting drunk and wild up and down Jackson. The wildest men were taken at night to the waterfront, where they were placed on sailing ships. They woke up at sea working as slaves. A lot of men were shanghaied from Jackson Street, and the barkeepers were drunk at their drinks years ago. Now, as we pull out and turn left here, look over your right shoulder down the street. You get a view of the Trans-American Pyramid just down over your right shoulder here. Where the pyramid building is where the water used to be. And Trans-American Pyramid, tight security nowadays. They used to let the public into the building to view, but not since 9/11 they've tightened up on their security. So it is the tallest in our skyline at 61 stories, but the pyramid, when you look at it closer, has 48 working floors. The top 13 floors on top of the pyramid are Teflon-coated steel. They say it's to balance the building in the event of an earthquake. The shops in the street. Your merchants will close in the street about 10 o'clock at night. But real pretty when it's lit. And it's always been a safe Chinatown to come into at any time. So if you have to come to Chinatown to have dinner, browse the shops when it's all lit at night. You can enter Chinatown out of Union Square. So you come out of Union Square about 4 blocks to your right into Chinatown. You just walk right down through your left here. So your main view of Chinatown is on your left side as we cross the street here. The Chinatown's Grant Avenue. Old St. Mary's Cathedral to your left dates back to and Redwood, logged out and used as landfill. It's quite stable. In the '89 earthquake, we had very little damage in our financial area. A couple of the older buildings had some still have offices here. So our skyline went through a lot of changes, 70s and 80s, a lot of newer, taller buildings, no high-rise height. You have earthquakes and landfill. They don't go more than 61 stories here. Concierge and the hotels were to go to for dinner in Chinatown. I recommend the R&G Lounge on your left side. R&G, the food is good, but the dining room is in the basement. You have no windows. So I don't really care for the restaurant. The restaurant I think that's a nice experience in Chinatown is the Empress of China. You can see the writing Empress of China. The Empress is 6 floors up on the top of the building. They like their groceries fresh every day, so look out to your left here at the cross street, Stockton Street, Chinatown, where you find the Peking duck in the windows, the fish markets, the produce, the vegetables. An experience to walk down that street, watch the grocery shopping. It gets quite loud. A lot of bargaining going on, but it's quite social. To your left side. Now the tourists in Chinatown are walking the next cross street up ahead. Grant Avenue. Your newer buildings, built in San Francisco from 1969 on, are built on the ball-bearing piston foundation. These buildings are designed for earthquakes and go up and down side to side. So your buildings from 69 on. You saw our skyline downtown. It went through a major change in the 70s and 80s when they came out with the ball-bearing piston foundation. We still have the medium steel high-rise height buildings. On your left ago was the meatpacking district. You'll find today the majority of the homeless people in here. So you don't want to walk around the Tenderloin late at night. It's been nicknamed Little Saigon. In the early 80s, there were refugees from Vietnam and Cambodia that were coming into the United States, and the government placed these people in various cities. They were placed here. It became Little Saigon. The cross street here, Ellis. Albert Ellis was the man that built the Golden Gate Bridge. Strauss designed bridges, but Ellis built the Golden Gate. The next cross street is O'Farrell, and he mapped out the city streets to give us the grid system, O'Farrell. If you look to your left here as you cross this intersection, you see the new St. Mary's Cathedral one more time up to your left here at the cross street. Cathedral to your left again. So Union Square, you can always ride a cable car from the Fisherman's Wharf to Union Square easily. So you find your department stores here. It's a square block park where the pro-Union rallies were held in San Francisco during the Civil War. Your department stores are going to close at 9:30. And by the way, if you're looking for a post office, you'll find the post office in the basement over at Macy's. So go to the Macy's basement. A lot of people are always looking for a post office over there. We have a lot of homeless people in our city. The city did a count on the homeless recently. They say there's 6,500 homeless people on our streets. They claim 40% of the homeless people have arrived on Greyhound buses from the parts of the country here. This city has general assistance for the homeless people. Nobody starves. But they try to get you into a rehab program where they'll get you on your feet, into jobs, into housing. And they give you $422 a month, too, as you go through the program. That's why you see so many. I don't know of other cities that do anything for the homeless. This city, people had voted to take care of them back in the 80s. Wealthier families were living in mansions on top of this hill up here. There were a couple of mansions that were built here in the 1850s, but most Nob Hill mansions, they were built in the 1870s. The mansions, all but one, were destroyed in the earthquake and fire back in 1906. They've rebuilt some hotels on the mansion sites over the years up here. The well-known families that lived up on Nob Hill, they were called the Big Four. They were the Crockers, Hopkins, Stamfords, and Huntingtons. They were the four railroad barons. They were the ones responsible for extending the Transcontinental Railroad to the west. But again, their mansions up here were destroyed in the earthquake and fire back in 1906, all but one. And one more block up, you'll be on top of Nob Hill. This hill is quite steep. The bus, we had to take the easier way up the hill. But look off to the right here at the next intersection. Look how steep it is from Nob Hill to Union Square. If it snowed, we'd have some pretty good ski jumps. You'll find some steep hills. They're pretty well marked. The cars are parked sideways and the sidewalk becomes a staircase. So if you're walking along, you see a steep hill ahead of you. You're best to make a left turn when you're walking. You'll find it's a block or two to your left and easier route around these hills. After Notre Dame in Paris. The construction of the cathedral began in 1927. Completed in 1964. Was built on the Crocker mansion site. Charles Crocker just gave his land to the Episcopal Church. Now the Huntington Hotel is coming up on your right here. United Nations flags around the front of it. The Fairmont is where they filmed the TV series Hotel. They called it St. Gregory's. It's where most of your presidents, dignitaries that come to visit would spend their night in San Francisco, usually the Fairmont. The Fairmont Hotel had opened 1907. So the car with the pink mustache going by there? Yeah, you start looking around, you see these cars with these pink mustaches. So this side of our city was wiped out by the earthquake and fire of '06, but the Fairmont was the first building that went up afterwards. On the right corner up here is the Mark Hopkins. It's the hotel with the stone wall around it. The stone wall was the port on the right side, built on Leland Stanford's mansion site. Stanford University in Palo Alto, about 35 miles south of here, home to the San Francisco Ballet. You saw the Opera House in the movie Pretty Woman. There was a scene where they flew from LA to San Francisco to the opera. Now just past the Opera House, coming up on your left side, is the carriage entrance. See the carriage entrance with the gold leaf around the iron gates. And the second building to our left side would be the Veterans Building. The Veterans Building is where the United Nations was born. The United Nations Treaty with Japan was signed here in 1945. The State Building's up on the corner. Now this street you're about to leave is Van Ness Avenue. Van Ness Avenue was the fire break in 1906. The fire chief lost his life in the earthquake of 1906. And these fires were destroying the city. The fires were coming from your right side. The Army planted dynamite up and down the street here and blew it up. So they blew up Van Ness, it was the fire break, and they were able to save most everything on your left side. Pretty much most things to the right of the street were all destroyed. A few buildings survived the earthquake and fire of '06 in the downtown center of our city. Around town, these furry pink mustaches. You start looking around, you see cars that have pink mustaches on their front grille or on their dashboard. These are people in their private cars earning extra money taxiing you around. So little cars with the pink mustache in the front, they're taxis. Walking all around the Castro. It was last February the city passed the ordinance, you gotta wear clothes. We used to drive through on the bus tour, you just see naked people left and right all over. People in the bus were just amazed. They couldn't believe they were in America. Until the nudist they can go to the street fairs like that. And now they gotta wear clothes. You come out here around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you see a couple of them out here without clothes on. They're out here every day. Protesters. In the '89 earthquake, the upper and lower deck, about a 50-foot on a weeknight at 5 o'clock. The commute traffic should have been stopped on the Bay Bridge and on the double-deck freeway. The traffic that night was light. That was because of the World Series. Game 3 of the World Series was about to start at Candlestick Park in San Francisco and the earthquake hit. The World Series that year was between both of our local baseball teams, which meant all the fans lived here. So now you're in the gay community called the Castro, and there's a pretty large gay community here. A city of different lifestyles, a city where people have come from other places living lifestyles of all types. For a city, San Francisco is a pretty clean, safe city. It's a very diverse city with very little discrimination. It's a city where people mind their own business. Anything goes. The heart of the Castro will be on your right side. The neighborhood years ago was an Irish neighborhood. It became beat up and run down. The Irish people left by 1974. Shortly after it became the gay community. And the orange streetcar that's pulled into the right over here, the orange one from Italy, the one behind it from Brooklyn. The city has a collection of about 50 vintage streetcars. And the streetcars, about 12 years ago, they began refurbishing cars. They repainted each one to the color scheme of the city from where it's from. So if you look along the side of these streetcars, you see the names of various cities. The signs on the streetcar read the same. The streetcar signs will say F Market Castro. They're called the F-Line. The F-Line streetcar will travel down these tracks and powered by the wires above. The F-Line will continue down Market Street into the shopping district, Union Square. From Union Square, they take you into the financial district. They'll come to the water side at the end of Market Street. So the streetcar will then go up the waterfront into Fisherman's Wharf. It'll loop the wharf back to the Castro. The streetcars travel kind of an L, half loop around the city. As you travel between Fisherman's Wharf and Union Square, you could ride the F streetcar or the cable car. You got to ride a cable car. You come as far as San Francisco, you got to board onto the moving landmark. Now the cable car will date back to 1873. Andrew Halliday invented the cable car. Halliday lived in San Francisco in the 1860s. At the time, he supplied cable to silver miners in the state of Nevada, and he was here in San Francisco and he witnessed an accident. There was a streetcar that was filled with passengers. It was being pulled by horses up a steep hill. The weight of the streetcar was a bit much for the horses. One of the horses slipped. The streetcar with all the people on board went crashing down the hill. Halliday saw this terrible accident. He said something had to be done to transfer passengers and supplies up and down these steep hills. A motor house was built, and the motor house is located up on Nob Hill. It runs a continuous moving cable below the track at a speed of 9.5 miles an hour, which is your traveling speed. The operator on the cable car is called the gripman. The gripman up front will pull back on that big lever. That grips onto the moving cable below the track, pulls the cable car along. Now when they stop to board passengers, the gripman just simply releases the grip. They'll come off the moving cable and apply the brakes to a stop. On the rear of the cable car, you have a rear brakeman. The rear brakeman has two jobs. He's applying the rear brake at the cable car, and he goes about the car collecting fares, becomes a conductor as well. Your cable car has 3 braking systems. The brakes they always use on cable cars are the wood blocks, and they claim they replace the wood brakes every 2 days. So next time you ride the cable car, look down by the wheels, you see the wood blocks. They're your brakes. Now, at the next cross street, you might see the metro trains again. The silver trains will tunnel to the downtown. That tunnel's about 3 blocks to your right here as you pull out of the intersection. As we drive around the neighborhoods, you notice the homes, the apartment houses here have bay windows. The reason for all the bay windows, remember your homes are just an inch apart. You don't have windows on the side of your home unless you live on the corner. So the middle part of your home is going to be dark and gloomy. The bay windows do allow in light from several sides to brighten up the middle part of the house. And your corner real estate would sell for more money having some light coming in. And we're on our way to the Victorian houses. You can start noticing the Victorian architectural design. And they began building the Victorians in the 1850s. They were built into the early 1900s. The 1906 earthquake and fire destroyed a lot of Victorian houses. There's about 14,000 Victorians that remain in the city. The Victorian house is the hottest item on the real estate market. A 3-bedroom Victorian remodeled nicely would sell between $1.5 and $2 million. Well, back in the 1950s and 60s, your Victorian houses here were beat up, run down. They were cheap rentals. Nobody wanted the houses, so the hippies lived in the Victorians out here. The cross street here is Haight. If you turn left at Haight Street, drove 9 blocks up to your left, you come to the intersection, Haight and Ashbury. The proper name of the district would be the Haight. The district was nicknamed Haight-Ashbury. The name had come from a nightclub. There was a rock and roll nightclub at the corner of Haight and Ashbury back in the 60s. It was called the Universal. Universal nightclub is gone today. At the corner of Haight and Ashbury, you'll find now a Ben & Jerry's and a Grape Express. But the Haight-Ashbury has become the alternative lifestyle. It's pretty neat to go out there and browse the shops. It's 7 blocks of shops that leads you into Golden Gate Park. It's a flashback to the 60s if you go out there to browse the shops. But don't ever go to the Haight-Ashbury in the morning because they don't wake up until the afternoon. The shops don't even open until the afternoon. Haight-Ashbury comes alive at night. So famous for the films. And take your picture as you go down the hill or go by them because we can't stop anymore for photos. Now the Mrs. Doubtfire house is on the same street as these homes, but 2 miles left. The Doubtfire house is at the corner of Steiner and Broadway. There's the famous picture postcard row, the Painted Ladies. They were built in 1866, early Queen Anne Victorian style. The prettiest house is the green one on the corner. The green house was the builder's house. Now these homes here were built here, but some of the Victorians in San Francisco were actually purchased out of the Sears Roebuck catalog, and they were placed on sites. Those homes would have numbers below them, but these homes here were built here. The prettier houses, they're on the corners. The corner home has the prettier woodwork. They're seen from the side and the back side. The homes that are built in the middle of the block are real plain in the back. Nobody sees the back of the house. About a year ago, the residents in these houses complained to the city about the passengers on tour buses on their porches. They say people knocked on their doors, asked to use their bathrooms. They won't let us stop. Now the complainer is the prettiest one. See the pretty woodwork on it, address 722. This was the builder's home, has the pretty woodwork. So we bought the other corner home, renovating that one. In the back of the home's arm. Only the corner home has the pretty woodwork on the back side. And look at the yard space, very low maintenance. The back of the houses are plain, only the corner home has the pretty woodwork on the back side. They're quick. These are called soft-story buildings. There's 4,500 of these buildings in our city. They have the garages down below with 3 or more levels above. This building here has been retrofitted. The city has given these coming up on both sides. These homes have the stick wood between the bay windows. They're built long and narrow. They're the earlier Victorian. These homes were built in the 1850s. Remember now, these Victorian houses have a price tag of $1.5 million up. You cross the street, you'll be looking at Section 8 housing right across the street. So government subsidized low-income housing was built in this next neighborhood right here. But it used to be a neighborhood of Victorian houses. But families left our city. Families were leaving here in the 50s and 60s, going out looking for yard space around their homes. So Victorians here were beat up and run down houses. People didn't want them. The government came into the neighborhood here in the 50s and started buying up all the houses through the 50s and 60s, tearing them out and building low-income housing. Now you can never tear down a Victorian house in San Francisco again. There's 14,000 Victorian homes that remain in our city. The hill up on our left, it's called Cathedral Hill. So at the next cross street, look up on your left side, you'll see a large white cathedral up on the hill. It's the New St. Mary's. New St. Mary's was quite modern for the 1970s. It has never blended in with other buildings here. People that live here say it looks like an upside-down agitator. They call it the Maytag, the New St. Mary's. It'll be on your left here at the next cross street. And the Pope had come to San Francisco for a visit. In the late 1980s, he spent his visit up at the New St. Mary's up on the hill to your left. Look again at the next cross street, you'll probably see it better at the next intersection. But New St. Mary's, beautiful cathedral. You'll find older cathedrals up on the hill as well. There's cathedrals up on the hill that date back to the 1890s. And the doors are open to cathedrals, so if you like to tour cathedrals, you should go up to Cathedral Hill. Let's get another look at the New St. Mary's to our left here at the intersection. You'll see a little bit better from here. It kind of looks like an upside-down wash machine agitator. It kind of looks like a Cardinals hat, too. Was a very wealthy San Franciscan involved with the symphony, and she donated $14 million towards this building. Opened here in 1980. City Hall right over to your left here, a beautiful building. City Hall in San Francisco, it looks similar to the Capitol in Washington. The City Hall had opened in 1915, but it was damaged in the '89 earthquake, shut down for 3 years. They had to build a new foundation. So City Hall, foundation below it. Of course, they're hoping in the next earthquake, City Hall kind of rock and rolls and falls back into place. They did a beautiful job renovating the building on the inside as well as the outside. So these older Civic Center buildings were built from 1910 to the mid-1930s. The architect who designed the older buildings was Arthur Brown up here at 35. There'd be a white curve where we drop you off. So the same place where I drop you off is where the shuttle driver picks up at 5:15, leaves at 5:30 back to the hotels tonight. So you have the option now, when you finish the Alcatraz tour, to return to your hotel with the shuttle bus, or you just walk up here to Fisherman's Wharf and have lunch and return to the hotel on your own by the cable car if you like. It's not that far to walk. Your pier is the second pier on the left up here. I'm going to go around the block so I can get over here and get to the right side where it's supposed to be. Now at the Alcatraz terminal, there's a cafeteria there, and there's also a gift shop. So you want to grab a bottle of water. You're out there walking around, you get a little bit thirsty, so it's a good idea to have the water with you. The nice guy just doing his job. Okay, I'm going to make a left turn to drop you where it says Cruise Terminal. See right over your left here where it says Cruise Terminal? Yep. Dropping you off there. Where you need to go, straight ahead to the right. It says Alcatraz Landing. So the boarding area will be outside the building.